What's up guys, and welcome back to another episode of Pokemon Origins with me, TheOneIntegral. Today we're looking at Chikorita, the grass type starter Pokemon from the Johto region and its evolution line, Bayleef and Meganium. So I guess we'll just jump straight into this. As always guys, be sure to suggest some more Pokemon down below, including particularly Johto Pokemon and then obviously Hone afterwards. But let me know what you want to see guys. But for now, let's just get started. So Chikorita. It's number 152 in the National Pokédex, and its Japanese name is also Chikorita, just spelt with a C rather than a K. Don't ask me why, they just did it. It's a C instead of the K there. You know, you guys get the idea. It is the leaf Pokemon and is a pure grass type. It stands at 0.9 meters or 2 foot 11 inches and weighs 9.4 kilograms or 14.1 pounds. And obviously we'll look at this height later on and sort of talk more about it then. Looking at the models from Generation 6, you can see its regular and shiny models there. Its shiny form is it's an autumn colour. It's sort of, if you imagine normal Chikorita as sort of a spring or a summery basis, then its shiny is basically autumn. It's got a dark sort of orangey browny leaf and the same with its necklace, and then sort of a yellowy greeny pale sort of skin colour. Its eyes are the same colour though. So it's sort of just an autumn design there. Chikorita will evolve into Bayleef, starting at level 16, so as is the same with any starter Pokemon, really evolves fairly quickly. So, Chikorita is a pale green quadruped, i.e. 4 legs, and has 4 short legs there. The legs are fairly short, the body is sort of the main focus here, whereas the legs are sort of a bit stubby, so it can't really run too fast or that far because obviously its stubby legs, it can just hop around, you know. Chikorita's head rises at the front of its body. It's its head's not really separate. Its body sort of just comes forward and then just sort of pops up at the front for a head. It is basically one big sort of just mass of body, you know, if you guys get what I mean. It's not like it's got a neck. There's no real neck there for Chikorita. Its head just sort of comes up at the front. It has a stubby tail, which you can see just at the back of the Sugimori out there. It's not too big at all. It's just sort of just there as a tail. And it has a fairly large green leaf atop its head, coming out just pretty much exactly at the top of its head, coming off and then going into a leaf hair, which looks pretty cool. And it also has these green buds, or a necklace of green points basically around its neck. And we can assume these aren't buds. I think we learned that from the Pokédex entries, as we'll look at in a minute. But these buds will just go around its neck and across the back of its neck. Or I say neck, but it doesn't really have a neck. But what would be its neck? There's a ring of green buds around. And they look alright. Obviously, being buds, that's what you'd assume buds would look like, some sort of fairly large base, and then just sort of tapering off as most buds do. Chikorita has dark brown red eyes. They're sort of, in the Sugimori art, they're sort of a really dark red. I can't really describe it sort of colour, but if you look at the models, it's sort of a deeper red there, so it's a bit easier to classify there. So looking at its Pokédex entries, we are told that the leaf on its head produces a sweet aroma, and it can also check the humidity and temperature in the area, as well as seeking out warm places. So this leaf is a pretty good leaf. Produces some sort of sweet aroma, some sweet smell, and it can just check humidity and temperature and find warm places for Chikorita, obviously because Chikorita, we assume Chikorita maybe likes warm places, or at least places with sun. So warm places are good for it, so it can use this leaf to sort of seek out and find these places just to stay in, basically. It can also use this leaf in battle to keep the foe away from it by swinging it around its head. Don't know how effective that is, because obviously it is just a leaf, so maybe it's just a scare technique, or maybe it actually does some damage when it hits. Who knows? We're also told that Chikorita loves to lie in the sunlight and soak up the sun, so this might be a hint that it also carries out photosynthesis. When we looked at Bulbasaur in its evolution line, we did find out that the bud on its back, or the bulb on its back, did carry out photosynthesis, so Chikorita's leaf may sort of function in a very similar way. This leaf, taking in energy from the sun, just as another source of food for Chikorita, so it doesn't have to feed all the time. It can, survive on sunlight for at least for a little bit, or at least, just sort of extra bit of energy for it, basically. If we move on to sort of look at the basis of Chikorita and what it's based on, initially you might, what does it look like? It doesn't really look like anything we know of. But along with its evolution line, it's similar to a sauropod, and this was a group of dinosaurs that existed from the Triassic era until obviously dinosaurs became extinct. And sauropods, they're similar to, you guys, a very common dinosaur know is Brachiosaurus, I think, is similar to a sauropod, not quite the same, but Brachiosaurus is a very similar one, so we'll look at more pictures later on when we look at Bayleef and eventually Meganium, but they are based on the sauropods, this evolution line. The shape and appearance of Chikorita also resembles that of a pear, or maybe a type of chicory, because if you look at its sort of body, I mean, looking more at the pale colour, most pears are this sort of colour, same with the chicory as well. So, you know, certainly it could have some basis from that, and obviously we'll look at names in a minute when it sort of comes into more play there. So as I mentioned, naming for Chikorita. So the Japanese name Chikorita and the English name Chikorita are both a combination of chicory and Ita. Chicory being some sort of this type of plant, you saw a picture of it just now, but you know, that's a chicory there, so that's where the chick comes from. And as we spoke about, it sort of looks like one, possibly, at least in colour at least. And Ita is a sort of, it's a suffix basically, I think it's Spanish, and it means sort of small or cute. So, you know, basically a small chicory. Which doesn't make a huge lot of sense, but obviously Chikorita is the first, you know, sort of the first one in the evolution line, so it is a small Pokemon, so Ita does work there. I mean, obviously you could have other suffixes on the end of Chico, I don't know, any other Spanish suffixes that would work well, but you guys get the idea there. Looking at another name for Chikorita, which is the French name for it, which is Germignon. I haven't done French for years, okay guys, you know. Germignon. It's a combination of germe and mignon. Germe is the French word for seed, so again, sort of similar to how Bulbasaur has, you know, seed bowl, whatever. And mignon is the French name for cute, French word for cute. So again, very similar, cute seed, cute whatever, you know. You guys get the idea there. So then looking at the size for Chikorita, if we look at it here compared to Ash and myself, it stands 0.9 meters or 2 foot 11 inches. I've taken this measurement from the top of the leaf, I think, simply because if I took it from the top of the head, Chikorita would be huge, okay? If I did it from the head, it would be where the leaf is, and the leaf would then extend up almost pretty much Ash's face, okay? Chikorita would look huge, and I'm pretty sure that's not how tall it's actually supposed to be. So I've taken the measurement from sort of the top of the leaf, where the leaf sort of goes backwards if it's just standing still. And I think that's a fairly good measurement. It's about half the size of Ash, but the actual body, you know, the actual body is bigger than you would expect. To be honest, I would expect Chikorita to be something you could easily hold in your arms, but it's actually a pretty big Pokemon, for a starter at least. And that's something I didn't expect when I was first looking at it, you know, when you know about Chikorita in the first place. Usually be something cute you could just hold, but really, it's a bit big for that. But that's the size of Chikorita there. Let me know what you think of it down in the comments. Is it too big? Is it too small? You know, sometimes my measurements are a bit off. Sometimes when they make up the sizes for the Pokemon, they don't necessarily think how it's going to look. But yeah, that's it for Chikorita. If we go now to the evolution of Chikorita, Bayleef. So Bayleef is number 153 in the National Pokédex, coming one after Chikorita, and the Japanese name for it is Bayleef. Same name, except it's got an A in leaf, so obviously for English, where leaf is an actual word, they didn't want to do it because it would be too similar to what the naming is based off of, which obviously we'll look at later, but for Japanese, they can easily do that there. It's the leaf Pokemon also, and is again a pure grass type. It stands at 1.2 meters or 3 foot 11 inches, and weighs 15.8 kilograms or 34.8 pounds, yes, that's how to read numbers. So it's a bit bigger than Chikorita, and obviously we'll look at the size later on. Looking at the models for Generation 6, you can see it has a very similar theme in terms of it's shiny as Chikorita did, so autumny theme, so a sort of an orange, a really bright pale orange for its skin colour, and then its leaf and what are leaves slash buds around its neck are again some sort of orangey colour, just to represent autumn really. As we said, Chikorita evolves into Bayleef starting at level 16, and Bayleef will then evolve further into Meganium starting at level 32. So again, it's fairly quick evolving. It's not really, 32 is the lowest any starter evolves at, I think, whereas some will evolve at 36. But no, you get your Meganium nice and not too early on, but fairly early on. So, Bayleef, very similar to Chikorita. Again, it's a quadruped, but this time it's a pale yellow colour, okay? So, where was it? A really pale light green. Now it goes to sort of mid-ish yellow colour. It's pretty pale. It's not too bright, it's not too dark, but it's a pale yellow colour. And now it actually has a neck. You have the body here, and that has this sort of long neck that comes up at the front of it with a small head on top. The head is pretty small in comparison to the body, whereas if you look at Chikorita, his head is pretty big compared to the body. Bayleef, again, very similar to Chikorita, has a pointed tail. This one is a bit longer than before, just sort of comes out a bit more and again ends in a point. Again, similar to Chikorita, what was the leaf on its head now is it's still a leaf, but it comes out a bit more. It goes straight forward and then comes back, whereas Chikorita just sort of went back, and it's now thinner, and it has this sort of circle shape or oval shape cut out of it. Don't know why that's there particularly. It might be to do with something about what it's based on, but obviously we'll look at that later on. But Bayleef is there, there's not really much else to say about it, apart from I think it's got one claw on each foot, and obviously it has these light green leaves around its neck, or at least they are leaves, or from what you can see, what you can tell. We'll look at that when we look at the Pokedex. But yeah, light green leaves around its neck encircling, so the buds have sort of, they've grown out much, similar to how we saw Bulbasaur, had its bulb, went out to a sort of a bud, and then it went into a flower. These necklace buds have now become leaves, and eventually they'll become whatever they are when we look at Meganium. We'll look at that later. Bayleef has red eyes again, but these eyes are they're more bright, I think, whereas Chikorita is sort of a really pale, darkish red. These are bright and almost orangey in colour as well, and I really do like that. I think they look really cool for Bayleef at least. So, Pokedex entries, as I said, there's a bit of discussion over whether the necklace Bayleef has are leaves or buds. Some Pokedex entries call them leaves, some call them buds, so who knows. But these leaves or buds around the neck produce a spicy smell, so whereas Chikorita gave you a sort of a sweet aroma, you have now a spicy smell coming from Bayleef, so, it just changes in the evolution. This scent makes anyone energetic and want to fight, so if you smell it, you're like, oh yeah, I'm getting pumped, sort of thing. So obviously, in battle, might be a good thing, might be a bad thing, because you could, inadvertently help your opponents, who knows. But this can also be used as a stimulant to restore health as well. So maybe a stimulant just makes you more energetic, so any health restoration is going to be more effective, basically. But in other Pokedex entries, we get sort of explained more that the necklace is made up of curled up leaves. Okay, so these leaves, they aren't just leaves that come out, they are curled, hence this sort of spiral pattern on it. And inside each leaf is a small root of a tree or a bud. So basically, it has leaves with buds inside, so it's technically both of them, okay? It says tree here. Obviously, Meganium doesn't have trees sprouting from around its neck, but who knows, maybe they changed their mind, maybe it's just sort of a bit of an inconsistency, but we'll talk more about that when we get to Meganium, probably. The basis for Bayleef. Again, it's similar to a sauropod, in particular now the Apatosaurus genus, which is a particular genus of sauropod with characteristics similar to Bayleef and Meganium. The leaf on top of its head and possibly the leaves around its neck as well are based on the bay laurel, which is a leaf, and obviously the oil from which is used for healing. And we can also compare that to the leaves around its neck, which are a stimulant to restore health. So there you go. Very similar sort of inspiration coming in both ways, both in the design and I guess you could call it the lore or the sort of the technical aspect of the Pokemon. So, the English and Japanese names Bayleef and Bayleef are a combination of, well, it's not really a combination, it's just Bayleef, okay? Just a corruption, or at least the Japanese name is just Bayleef, and the English name is just a corruption with one different letter of Bayleef. And as I've said already, the leaf on its head is based off of a bayleaf, and obviously it's a herb, it has a sort of spicy smell, I do believe, so that's where it comes from there. Looking at another of Bayleef's names, we have Lorblatt, which is the German name for it. And this is a combination of Lorbeer and Blatt. Lorbeer being sort of, the German name for laurel, hence, bay laurel. And Blatt being the German name for leaf. So laurel leaf, basically. Again, referencing the bay laurel, very similar there. If we take a quick look at the size of Bayleef before we finish up here, you can see standing at 1.2 meters or 3 foot 11 inches. This time, I do believe I've taken it from the head rather than the leaf, because I think if I took it from the leaf here, it would be very small, be pretty much smaller than Chikorita. But this sort of measurement looks about right for Bayleef. From what I've seen in the anime, it does look about this size. Pretty big. Not too big, not bigger than the me or Ash, in terms of the leaf at least sticks just high enough, but the actual body is not bigger than me or Ash, so it's still a fairly small Pokemon. But obviously the bigger will come when we get to see Meganium, obviously. So if we now go on to the final Pokemon for today, let's take a look at Meganium. Meganium is number 154 in the National Pokédex, coming after Bayleef, obviously, and its Japanese name is Meganium, so not too much variation in its evolution. It is the herb Pokemon now rather than the leaf Pokemon, and again is a pure grass type. It stands at 1.8 meters or 5 foot 11 inches and weighs 100.5 kilograms or 221.6 pounds. So it's gotten a fair bit heavier and bigger than a Bayleef. We'll look at that more later on. Looking at the models from Generation 6, you can see it sort of does carry on the autumn theme here, but it gets a bit more golden in my opinion. You can see its main body is sort of almost a goldy green colour is the only way I can describe it. but that's, that's what it looks like basically. Its antenna things stay the same colour, and its leaf changes to an orange colour. The insides don't change at all, so there's not much change there, apart from it turning more goldeny basically. So, Meganium. It's a light green quadruped Pokemon, and so it's gone from Chikorita being pale green, going to Bayleef being sort of pale yellow, and now back to pale green, so it's sort of, I guess, combining both of them, because it does get a bit brighter green rather than being really pale. It's now a light green quadruped. It has a very long neck, even longer than Bayleef's, with one small head atop it. You couldn't, the head is only a bit bigger than the neck itself, so it's a very small head. It also has a stubby tail, so it's gotten a bit thicker as well, just because of, I think, Meganium's general body shape has gotten a bit bigger as well. And it has this pink frilled flower around the base of its neck. It has short legs with 3 claws on the end of each foot, or stubby leg, or whatever you want to call it. So, as I mentioned earlier with Chikorita, Meganium's not the Pokemon to run that fast, because it has very small legs. It has 2 yellow stamen-like protrusions coming off the top of its nose, the front of its face, whatever you might want to call it. We can assume they're used in similar ways to how insects might use them, or plants I think use them as well, who knows. And it has bright yellow eyes, so it went from sort of the dark red to the orange red, now to a bright yellow colour on the eyes as well, which looks pretty cool. It looks it's like a golden eye. I like it quite a lot. Looking at Pokédex entries for Meganium, there's not really a huge amount here. They only speak about 2 things, which is the fact that the aroma that arises from the flower soothes emotions, whereas Chikorita's was just a sweet smell. Bayleef's was a spicy one that made people energetic. Meganium actually soothes emotions here, so it could be more useful in a battle, because obviously it could soothe your opponent's emotions and make them easier to defeat, who knows. But we also told that Meganium's breath has the power to restore dead plants back to life, so who knows, maybe that's true, maybe that's not. But there's really not much else spoken about in the Pokédex entries, it's just these 2 things here. The flower calming emotions, and the breath reviving dead plants and whatever else. That's it. The basis for Meganium, again, it's similar to a sauropod, much like Bayleef, and in particular the Apatosaurus genus. And the flower around its neck could resemble either a geranium, a hibiscus, or a hipastrum. Okay, the 3 are shown on screen now. It's one of those 3. Each of them fits it in a different way. They all look very similar, so I've one of those. Maybe the geranium most of all, though, as we'll find out just now with the naming. Meganium is a combination of Mega and Geranium. So Mega maybe being, obviously Megas weren't around here. Mega maybe just referring to the fact that it's fully evolved, something along those lines. It's big, who knows? And Geranium is the flower possibly that inspired its neck design. Looking at one other name for Meganium, we have Megani, which is German, the German name for it, which is a combination of Mega and Gerani. Mega being, again, Mega, and Gerani being the German name for geranium. All the other, or not all the others, but French, Spanish, Italian, all Meganium. So the naming isn't really that varied for Meganium here. Now if we take a look at the size, it's 1.8 meters or 5 foot 11 inches, so it's just a bit shorter than myself. So if we look at it with its sort of the head being the top of its body, the top of its measurement, it looks as you would imagine it would, to be honest. There's Meganium there. That's it really. It's pretty big. It's exactly how big I'd assume it would be with its long neck. Obviously it's not as big as the dinosaurs it's based off of, but obviously, you wouldn't necessarily want that, Anyway guys, that's going to be it for this, it's for Meganium. That's going to be it for this episode of Pokemon Origins. If you did enjoy it, please be sure to hit the like button down below and suggest some more Johto Pokemon. We're going to carry on looking at the starters, so the Cyndaquil line as well as the Totodile line, and then I'll move on to looking at some more Johto Pokemon, and then we'll be on to home. So be sure to suggest some more Pokemon down below guys, but for now, this is going to be it for me for today. I'll be seeing you next time. Thank you for watching. Goodbye my friends.